Hey, everybody, welcome to Truth, Lies, and Political Bullshit. I don't know about you, but I'm getting sick and tired of this cancel culture that we live in, where a small group of people have somehow influenced corporations and businesses all over this country to just cancel things that I don't think can be canceled. Can you really cancel George Washington? Can you really cancel the American flag? Can you really cancel comedy? How the hell do you stop people from laughing? Well, today, my good friend Scott Edwards is joining Truth, Lies, and Political Bullshit as we look at comedy in the 21st century and talk about this woke cancel culture and what the effects it has on comedy today. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome my good friend Scott Edwards. Scott, welcome to Truth, Lies, and Political Bullshit.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here with Sean. What an incredible experience. My life has meant nothing to this moment.
Well, hey, listen, I'm glad you're with me, man, because I'm a new podcaster. I told you when we had the conversation, but we're really growing fast. I think we're kicking some ass, and I just want to have great people on to talk about great things, right? That's what life's all about. Sharing your experiences, getting a laugh out of it, because this show is about a guy who started comic clubs, who worked with some of the best comedians in the world. And I don't know about you, but I wish that's what I did in my life. I was a fireman. We had a lot of fun, but nothing like hanging around with Jay Leno. And so today, I hope you'll share some of those great stories with me. Let me
I'll
just
be
start out.
happy to, Sean. I was very blessed. I had a chance to open a comedy club back in 1980, and this was before the big wave of stand-up comedy success. But I did get a chance to work with Bob Saget, Dave Coulier, helped me get started, Garry Shandling, Jay Leno, Ray Romano, Jerry Seinfeld. It goes on and on. Paula Poundstone. I've had a chance to work with them all, and I've had a very blessed life.
Yeah, I guess so. You must have had a real exciting life, right? I always say it's time to get excited, and you make me excited when I seen you on the. I went online, did some research. Obviously, if you have somebody on your podcast, but when I seen the things you did, I was like, "Holy shit!" Who does that at 17? Who does that at 24? At 17, I was standing in front of the convenience store with $3 in my pocket, and we were trying to do a job. That job was getting somebody 19 to buy us a 6-pack of beer, right? You're out there building businesses. Then you go on to build one of the most prestigious comedy clubs back in 1980. It's still alive and well today, 41 years later, right? And some of the greatest comedians of all time started there. Tell us about some of the people that started there and you helped them build their career. Love to hear that.
Well, it was very fortuitous. I was selling life insurance and absolutely hating my job. I was successful at it, but I didn't enjoy it. When you're 23, 24, life insurance doesn't have that value that it does now
Yeah.
at an older age. But anyway, I was on vacation in LA with my girlfriend, soon to be wife, soon to be ex-wife, and we went to this satellite location of the Comedy Store. My dad referred it, and I go in, and I'd never experienced that kind of entertainment before. There were no comedy clubs around. It was very, very, very limited. There was maybe 10 in the whole country at the time. And I met Dave Coulier, Sandra Bernhardt was there, George Wallace was there, and I was so enthralled. And I'd already, as you alluded to, I'd started other businesses prior to this. And so one of my theories is when you want to do something, talk to the people that do it. That's how you learn. So I hung out after the show. I talked to the comics. I talked to the manager of the club. And I was just filled with excitement that this entertainment format, which was really rare at the time, stand-up comedy used to be the break between strippers or jazz club,
I
right?
never seen a stripper. I wouldn't know that.
Well, there were no quote unquote, well, there were 10 comedy clubs when I first had this experience. Anyway, I drove up back home to Sacramento, California, where I'm at, and I immediately quit my job. I went bankrupt. I wheeled and dealed my way into the use of a banquet room at a fancy restaurant for free, and started booking shows in August of 1980. And my very first show, the opening act, it was his first road gig out of his hometown of Phoenix, Arizona, was Garry Shandling.
Wow.
And a lot of people know him. He went on to
Sure.
television and movie fame. Um, my featured act was Peter DePaula, because I always liked magic. So there was always magic in the middle, comedy magic. And then the headliner was George Wallace, who ended up being like Mr. Vegas. He had his own theater in Las Vegas for 12 years. George Wallace was a terrific talent to be lucky enough to get. But this all started because of Dave Coulier introducing me to Garry and introducing me to Bob Saget, who introduced me to so-and-so. In fact, I got a great side story. You got a second, Sean?
Sure, man. I got all the time for
I
you.
was only about 4 months into owning the club, and I mentioned Bob Saget helped me get started. He did my first TV commercial. He was teaching me how to run a club, what to charge, how to treat the comics, all the important things, him and Coulier. And Bob calls me up and he goes, "Hey, I want to bring a friend up. He's on a new sitcom and he needs to learn how to be a stand-up comic." I go, "Oh, sure. Let's go for it." So this young comic came up and, well, he was an actor, came up, and Bob helped him write material. And I showed him how to use the mic and where to look and how to be kind of the mechanics of being a stand-up comic. And Bob Saget and I helped him put together a nice, tight little 2-minute, 3-minute comedy set. And he went back down and did it for his sitcom. Well, for those in the audience that are old like me, you may remember the TV sitcom was called Bosom Buddies.
Oh, yeah.
And the actor that I helped teach and Bob Saget wrote material for was Tom Hanks.
Imagine that.
And that was his first show. He was a very young actor, and he came up and learned how to do stand-up comedy at my club in 1980. It was, now of course, he wasn't Tom Hanks at the time. He did have his own show, Bosom Buddies, which was already a thrill, but who knew he'd end up being the legend he is.
Yeah, probably one of the greatest actors of all time. I mean, I love watching Tom Hanks movies, and he seems like a real great guy. He seems like a down-to-earth guy. I mean, you still ever have conversations with him?
Oh, no.
No, he don't remember you? All these people that see
he would remember the training, and he was really good friends with Bob Saget. But yeah. I was just happened to be there and was very blessed that Bob brought him to my club to do that.
Well, you did more than just happen to be there. It was your club, and you helped the guy, and now he's a superstar. And I want you, when you get off the podcast with me, I want you to call him and to remind him that you helped him get his career.
I like how you think.
You can't let people forget where you come from. I mean, I think that's one of the most important things in life. Never forget where you come from. And I think that's the cool part of what you do, right? Because laughter just continues to flourish. Day after day, I tell my kids, find something to laugh about, right? Even when the world seems like it's upside down, find something to laugh about. You should laugh every day. You should laugh until you cry. I really believe that, right? I'm a huge fan of comedy. I really am. I mean, Richard Pryor used to just tear me up. I used to love listening to Richard Pryor, and I used to love George Carlin and Don Rickles. He was the best, right? I mean, that son of a bitch would make me laugh, and I didn't even know what I was laughing about. But these were the old time guys. I used to like Archie Bunker and the reason I talk about them today is Eddie Murphy. But today, some of these great comedians that really filled our lives with joy and laughter, when we could all laugh at ourselves, right? We could go to a club and, I don't remember the days, but I think it's really neat that you said that. There was a time when there was no clubs, right? And stand-up comedians, where did they stand up?
Stand-up comedy was happening in the Catskills at some high-end resorts. And like I said, it was in the strip clubs and jazz joints as kind of a way to break the entertainment while they reset a band or reset for the next stripper or whatever. It was not a main bastion of entertainment until the late 70s and early 80s. And as I mentioned, when I opened my club, Laughs Unlimited, all comedy showroom, August of 1980, at that point, it was the 12th full-time comedy club in the country.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So, very limited, 12 in the entire United States. It was like San Francisco, LA, Boston, New York. There were just a few. And in about 2-3 years later, comedy, stand-up comedy just hit this big, I call it the rock and roll wave of comedy. It started appearing on TV, like shows like Evening at the Improv and stuff like
Yes,
that.
absolutely.
So by 1986, just a short 5 or 6 years later, comedy clubs were kind of like Starbucks. They're on every corner. And what happened was that was right when disco died. So all the disco clubs, I'm not kidding. I was in
Yeah,
disco before.
yeah.
Woo!
I never
Uh,
did the disco thing, man. I
yeah,
couldn't. The high heels just made me wobble if I drank too many
or the
beers. I'd
angel
wobble as
flight pants and
yeah,
the
you wobble as it is, but when they had those high heels and you're drinking beer, it didn't mix well with me.
well, a lot of the discos converted into comedy clubs, and comedy hit its boom era, and a lot of people got an opportunity. Oh, we've got a call.
Yeah, that's Tom Hanks.
Well,
He
just
wanted to
tell him I'm
he
busy.
wanted to know if you were available. I said no. I just sent him a quick message. Said don't call me back unless you can remember my buddy. You don't call me.
Thanks, Sean. I appreciate you having my back.
I got you covered, man. You know I do. So let me just go back to the what I was trying to say. Right, comedy at one time was just you could laugh at yourself. Everybody just enjoyed it. Can you imagine today? We have a cancel culture with some of the biggest comedians in the world have been told they had to shut down and go play somewhere else. They couldn't play here, they couldn't play there, and it just blows my mind because we allow the minority to now be the majority because everybody else just sits back and doesn't say nothing. I'll give you a funny story, right? So there's a music hall in the city of Cohoes, right? It's called the Cohoes Music Hall, obviously. It's the fourth oldest active music hall in the country. It is the most gorgeous music hall that you've ever seen in your life. And I had an opportunity to oversee that music hall. And we brought in Nick DiPaolo. You know Nick DiPaolo? The man makes me
Not
laugh so
worked for
hard.
me, but a very funny guy.
Yeah, I get pains in my ribs. I can't. The guy makes me laugh, and he's just an amazing guy. He loved the music hall so much that he said, "Hey, I'd like to come back, and I'd like to, tape my special here because this place is just an amazing, gorgeous, one of a kind music
Yeah,
hall."
venues can mean a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, and he just felt like he could just he just felt it, man. When you walk into the place, you can feel it, right? And I said, "Listen, I'd love to have you come back. So you come back." So we work everything out. He's coming back to play in the music hall. And now two city councilmen in our city decide that they don't want him to come here and play because somewhere in some place, and I don't know where because I don't know what the man does every second of his life, but he said the word queer. And, listen, if you go to a comedy show, you hear all kinds of stuff, right? I was about 280 pounds. I couldn't see my feet. My hat didn't really fit. I had to put it on extra wide, right? Every time they talked about fat jokes, I mean, if I got upset and said, don't come here and play no more, Jesus, there would never be a comic. Me, I laughed so hard that the fat kid in the audience, I just laughed out loud. And people say, listen to this guy over here. Because I felt that they brought so much joy and so much happiness and so much laughter to your soul, regardless of what they were talking about. For me, it was a minute of no matter what you were, you were part of something funny. And you didn't have to take your freaking self so serious. But
Exactly.
they tried to
People,
stop him from coming. And
yeah,
I
people have lost that gift of being able to laugh at themselves.
they
You
really
mentioned
have.
Don Rickles, Lenny Bruce, Joan Rivers. They all, Rodney Dangerfield. They all had an edge to them where they would talk about certain ethnicities or something, but it was all about bringing people together. Don Rickles is probably the best example. He made fun of everybody, but
Yeah.
the idea was to bring everybody together by laughing at themselves. Don't take life so serious. In the case of these city council people, two rules. One, who gives a rat's ass what they think? And two, if you don't want to go to the comedy club because you might be offended, here's a little secret. don't go.
What did you do? Steal my thunder? Because that's what I told them. I said, "Who gives a shit about the two of you? And if you don't want to go, don't go." I mean, it's that
Right.
big. I mean,
If
I'm
you're
not going to.
easily offended, keep your ass at home.
Yeah, I'm not going to go to a place that I don't want to go. I mean, come on, give me a break. I'm not going to go swim with sharks. There's other people that get in the cage swim with sharks. I'm not doing it. Why? I don't want to go. I don't know. I'm afraid I don't want to get eaten, but I'll go to a comedy show where they'll bust my balls for being 280 pounds. But I said to these guys, you got to understand something. They're not picking on you. They're not looking at you going, this is about you. This isn't personal. This is about bringing laughter and lightening up the load for all of us. We all have skeletons. We all have demons. We all have issues. We all have social problems. The world is a bunch of screwballs. Let's face it. And they would make you laugh at your own stupidity, your own stupid stuff, right? I've been thinking he's laughing at me while I got a hamburger and 2 beers in my hand. He's right? What he said was funny, and I would laugh. And I just wish that today the world could like lighten the hell up and take comedy and bring laughter into their life, because we would be so much better than we are now. The world's uptight, man. The world needs an enema, to tell you the truth. Everybody's so uptight and they're packed up and they got to just release themselves, because it's time to stop getting up every day and just listening to all the bad shit going on in the world. I want to get up and turn it on the Comedy Channel and laugh for 20 minutes before I walk out my door and go, oh, shit, here's the reality now. Because comedy is not always the reality. It's the perception, right? It's the perception of life and laughter and joy. And then sometimes you walk out of the show, you hit the real world and go, oh, shit, I wish I could go back in. At least I think that's what you and I would be doing.
Well, comedy, stand-up comedy in particular, has always been about poking fun at life. I mean, some of our best entertainers make fun of our political system. You know, it's a way to laugh at the craziness that we all deal with. But even your great monologists like Jay Leno and Jerry Seinfeld, you know, when they're talking about, you know, I had to go to the cleaners or something happened at the grocery store, I had to go to the airport. The reason they pick these topics is just like politics, or the fact that there's gays in the world, or African Americans in the world, or whatever, you know, Jewish people, whatever. They're there. It's a reality. So by doing material about it is something that everybody in the room can engage with and can relate to, and that's what makes it work. You know, if a guy, I don't know, I can't even think of a topic, you know, maybe taxidermy. You know, a guy goes up and does taxidermy jokes. Well, everybody knows what it is, but it's probably not the open wide conversation title that something else like politics or going to the airport would be, right? Because I don't know. The key to stand-up comedy is relating to the audience and talking about something that everybody, or at least the majority, and I think you pointed this out earlier, it used to be the majority ruled, right? So there's always going to be somebody that maybe doesn't get the humor, doesn't listen to the joke, or gets the joke, or is offended by the joke. But if you're in front of 200 people or 500 people or even 20 people, the key is, as long as the majority of the people can relate to what you're talking about, they're going to see your vision of the humor of that. And that's what brings everybody together. And like what you're saying is, we're missing some of that in this new counterculture kind of / woke society. And I think it hurts us as a people.
Well, I think so.
But I think it's also a pendulum, Sean. I think it's coming back.
Well, I
mean,
hope
it
so.
was a big deal, I don't know, a year and a half ago. I think it's already starting to come back. Dave Chappelle and other people are pushing back. You know,
they tried to cancel him, right? And he walked across the street and played somewhere else and made more money. I mean, the bottom line is this, right? When you're in a room collectively with a bunch of people, all different people from every different race, religion, creed. We all look different. Some are skinny, some are fat, some are tall, some are short. When everybody's getting their balls busted at the same time, that should be uniting us to say, hey, look we all have something funny to laugh about. We all can get along. We can all look different and act different and be taller and shorter and whatever. And somebody up here is making us laugh about it, rather than looking at each other and saying, geez, I want to whack you over the head because you're tall, or I want to knock you down because you're shorter. Hey, you're ugly. Well, you're fat, or you're this, you're that, and be mean-spirited. You can go somewhere and realize that, hey, we're all different. And it's as funny as hell. And when somebody lightens the load for us, man, laugh about it. Walk out of there, smile at each other, make friends on the way out, and enjoy yourself. And say, look, and I'm going to come back next week because the other guy's coming and he's as funny as this one, and I want to laugh. And if we can't start laughing, man, we're in a lot of trouble because everything else is upside down. The whole
Well, and
world is upside down.
I think you're right to get up on your soapbox on that, Sean, because it is a situation where we as a people, if we lose that ability to laugh at ourselves, picking our piccadillies, I call them, and not sharing those experiences, we're going to not have that connection. I think, we're already going down that path with cell phones and the internet. We're losing that personal connection. At least stand-up comedy, when you go to a live show for the, hour and a half you're in that theater, much like a movie, it's a shared experience. But stand-up comedy is much, much more personal because there's actual interaction with the audience and things that are relatable. One of the best comics ever, everybody will know the name, my good friend Bob Saget,
Yeah, Bob
had
Saget
a
was great.
dual life. He was on TV, he hosted shows, America's Funniest Videos, Full House. He was like Mr. Clean. On stage, he was filthy, engaged with the audience, and very, very funny. He didn't insult people, but he was really funny, but really dirty on stage. And yet he was a huge TV and did some movies, but mostly television star, and where he was like Mr. Clean. So that's where the acting comes in. But if somebody saw him as Danny on Full House and then went to the comedy show and thought they were going to see the same thing, no,
Yeah, right.
totally different. And you had to accept that that's who Bob Saget was.
Don't we all do things for a thrill? I mean, you go to the amusement park and you get on this thing called a roller coaster. The thing does 900 miles an hour, flips you around 50 times, and you don't do it because you go, I like taking slow drives, through Vermont, Vermont, or slow drives through New York. I go because I want the thrill. Well, you don't go to the comedy club to hear stuff that don't make you laugh, right? And it's funny, but people laugh at things that kind of push their buttons, push their limits, right? We laugh at ourselves, we laugh at other people. That's what comedy is to me, right? I'm not going to the amusement park and going on the little horses that go up and
But
down.
that's a
I'm
great
going on them
analogy,
son of a
Sean.
bitches that go 100 miles an hour because that's
Yeah.
what I want. I want to be thrilled. I want to be excited. And you don't go to the comedy club not to be excited and thrilled. You go to laugh at yourself, laugh at other people, and do it collectively and do it in a friendly manner so that when you leave, you just feel like the whole world's been lifted off your shoulders. And
Well, I
I hope
think you
people.
bring up a great analogy, Sean, because if you don't like roller coasters, guess what? You don't go on them.
Absolutely.
If you're going to be offended and you have too thin a skin and you don't understand stand-up comedy, don't go to the comedy club. Here's the difference. There's no protest. There's no group of people saying that roller coaster is horrible and terrible because I don't like it and it scares me. And yet people will get in front of a comedy club or go online and put everything down because it's not their cup of tea. You know what? We don't give a crap.
I don't give a
This is
shit.
for the people that want to laugh at life and have a good, laughing is a healthy thing. It releases endorphins. It actually can extend your life. There's evidential proof of comedy and laughing saving lives, people recovering from cancer. I mean, it's a good thing. And for people to want to wall that off because it's not what they want, okay, fine. You go do whatever you do, but let the rest of us enjoy life.
Hey, laughter is the best medicine, don't they say? Right? They always say
Exactly.
laughter is the best
That and
medicine.
an apple, you're good forever.
When they,
Sean, I wanted to live forever. So far, so good.
yeah, good for you. Well, listen, tell me a little bit about you made some money, right? You own these clubs, you made some money, and then you go out and buy a submarine. I mean, I get a submarine sandwich. When I was reading it, I'm like, what's he talking about? He's got a submarine. So what do you do with a submarine? I mean, do you go underwater, put the little thing up and peep at time and across the lake or something? What do you do with it?
Well, everybody, what Sean's talking to is that I'm a lifelong entrepreneur. I started my first company at age 17. It was a small construction company. At age 19, I had a portable music venue. I was actually spinning disco and teaching dancing. And by the way, Sean, we have this this in common. I was a bouncer back in those
There you
days. I
go.
know you were a bouncer.
That's how I paid my
Um,
mother's rent.
I ended up in the comedy club business, and financially, it was very successful. I made an investment in a company called Snuba, which is underwater snorkeling. It's all over the world. Great company, great system, great way to experience being under the ocean. But the guys that developed Snuba built a submarine, and I helped them launch it in Oahu at Pearl Harbor. And I'm in there screwing things and cleaning things, and I go, man, this is cool. I want one of these. And so they had built one more, but when they got to Nautilus 4, that was the one I owned. And I wanted it close to Sacramento, so I put it in Monterey Bay because there's so much to see. There's big fish, there's the kelp forest, the sea otters, the sea lions. And we launched this tourist submarine called the Nautilus in Monterey, and at huge expense. And it was a huge financial disaster.
Well, I can imagine.
Lost my ass.
Not many
But
people
it was a
have a
lot of
submarine.
fun. My kids got to ride on it. I got to drive it. It failed because the water in Monterey is so cold. There's a problem with algae bloom. So I actually had to pay a scuba diver to go along with the submarine and keep the windows clean. Financially, it was a big problem.
That
We
could have
ended
been
up
a comedy
selling it to,
sketch, right?
huh?
That could have been a comedy sketch. You got
Exactly.
the submarine and the guy's cleaning your windows while you're going on.
Exactly, going along with you.
Yeah.
We ended up selling it to the Wrigley Gum family. It is still operating out of Catalina in Southern California, but it was a great adventure. It was a lot of fun. Financially, a huge debacle for me, but I still love the fact that I got a chance to do that. But Sean, I also purchased a beach shack in Kona, Hawaii, on the Big Island, and I had that for about 5 years. And it's not near Sacramento, but it gave me a chance under business tax write-off to fly over about 4 or 5 times a year and spend time on the beach with all the semi-clad women. I was pretty young, so it was in single, so it was enjoyable.
Well, listen, you had a hell of a career. You've done a lot of great things, you know. Can you imagine, though, what it'd be like today if you had an Archie Bunker trying to start a TV show, or Red Fox trying to start a TV show? I mean, these people were some of the funniest in the world, right? Again, people that could just, you'd watch it and you knew that it wasn't reality, but it was the funniest perception that you could, really think of, and it just brought you to to that jolly laughter at times. And those people today, they wouldn't even get a chance to.
They wouldn't even get a
be,
chance. Well,
yeah, they wouldn't
stand-up
even.
comedy has always been, comedy is very close to tragedy, right? That's why
Yeah.
in theater you see the two masks. Stand-up comedy is all about pushing the envelope. Now, it's true some people maybe go a little too far once in a while. That happens, and anything that you want to try to grow and try different things. But you've mentioned a couple, Don Rickles. I mentioned Joan Rivers, Lenny Bruce, Bobcat Goldthwait, Bob Saget. A lot of these guys that had a great living became famous, but they did that because they pushed the envelope, because they were trying to take it to the next level, because that's where sometimes the comedy can be found. You know, if you just went up on stage and said all our politicians are really great men and they're doing good things, no one's going to laugh.
Well, yeah, they will, because I won't believe a word you're saying.
Exactly.
They'd
But
laugh
you
and
go up
say,
on
"This guy got me
stage,
an asshole,"
right?
but they certainly wouldn't be chuckling with that jolly laughter. You're right. You got to push
Well,
the envelope.
maybe that was a bad analogy, but let's say, you go to the cleaners and you drop off your clothes. There's nothing really funny there, but you get somebody like Jerry Seinfeld that says, I went to the cleaners and,
Yeah, and they animated, and they're funny. I mean, listen, when I was a younger kid, Dice Clay, you remember Andrew Dice
oh,
Clay?
yeah.
I mean, he came out, he was a filthy son of a bitch, but for a time, he was the biggest in the world. He was packing stadiums with 16, 20,000 people, and his jokes were just stupid, and they were funny, man. And but eventually he kind of fades away. And the people like Don Rickles and them, they stayed for a lifetime. uh, the Eddie Murphys, the George Carlins, these people lasted through a whole lifetime. So the funny thing about comedy is that there's people that will make you laugh for a lifetime. There'll people that will come into your life and give you a couple years of just this joy and laughter. And it just continues to recycle. And there's a whole bunch of new ones out there. And you catch them like at Funny Bones and some other these clubs where they're starting out. And you find some people and you go, man, he's going to be good or she's going to be great because they you're busting out laughing, man. And when you're busting out laughing,
you bring up a good point, Sean, is that when you own a comedy club, and in my case, I built it up to a chain of 3 comedy clubs. We were like university. We were the training ground. So I worked with literally, let's say 1,000 stand-up comics, and some of them weren't very good. Some of them were okay, and some were great, but only like 1%, I always say, got the golden ticket and became famous. The Dana Carveys, the Jerry Seinfelds, the Ray Romanos, they all worked for me like 1,000 other guys, but they got to take it to the next level, which is a real gift and earned. They're very talented. But I can name, Steve Bruner, Jeff Jenna, Tim Bedore, Tom McTeague, Laurie Kilmartin, Lois Bromfield, a dozen comics that had great careers, made a great living, are really, really funny people, but no one's heard of them. They're not famous. They didn't get that golden ticket. So like a lot of other careers, you hear about the top 1%, but there's a lot of really funny people out there willing to entertain and share their comedy with an audience if the audience is willing to listen and go with it. You know what I mean?
And I've seen a lot of them because you go to these clubs where they're $15-20 to get in and you go, hey, there's a comedy show for $20 and you go, wow, these people were fantastic. They're not, you don't see them on TV. You don't see them at the Pepsi Arena or the Times Union Center or any of these major, arenas.
Even sometimes doing TV, a good friend of mine, Andy Kindler, was on the Letterman show for many years. He was on the Everybody Loves Raymond show. But Andy Kindler is not really a world famous name, but he was on the Letterman show, I don't know, a dozen times.
Those shows were fantastic. Johnny Carson, I used to love him.
He was the best.
I don't even know. He would say things I don't even know if he thought he was going to make you laugh. And you would say, he's the funniest bastard I've ever heard. He was just a pure comedian without even trying, right? But those shows brought in a lot of people that were unknown and gave them a moment in the spotlight. They're 15 minutes of fame. Some of them go on to be world famous. Other ones go on and get back to the funny bones and the small clubs and go out and make a life. It's not an easy life, right? Making people laugh every day and traveling in your car. When Nick DiPaolo came up here, he may have flown up here. I don't know how he got here, but the people that he had before him, the comedians that warmed him up, they were driving. They were driving from New York City to Albany, New York, and then jumping off the stage after they're done. They're not sticking around for the show, and they're heading 150 miles the other way. It was a tough life. It's not an easy life for all these guys, right? And there's luck involved, and there's politics involved to become a number one top person in the world. Maybe you're at a show and somebody famous is there and they catch you and they turn you into a superstar. Justin Bieber got turned into a superstar on YouTube. YouTube now gives people a chance to have their own channels. So there's a lot of opportunities that weren't available back when you started your clubs, but your clubs were the innovative places.
The launching point. Yeah, the launching point for a lot of careers. The most recent, Brian Posehn, who was a regular on The Big Bang Theory and has done a lot of other TV. He was just an opening act, open micer at my club. And I remember sitting in the audience with his mom and he would say, drop an F-bomb or something. And his mom would go, oh, he shouldn't be doing that, and I
and that's what they said about my
Posehn
podcast.
Had a lot of talent, still has a lot of talent, and ended up becoming a good actor. Not really known for his stand-up comedy, but that's how it all started.
Yeah, it's funny. And today, as soon as this cancel culture woke bullshit kind of settles down, there's a lot
Don't hold back, Sean. How do you really feel?
There's a lot of opportunities and venues to reach people. I don't know about that TikTok. You can go on the TikTok. There's millions of people, but I think they're stealing your ID.
I think when you say that TikTok, you're
That
probably not on
TikTok,
it.
right? Well, I'm only on it because, I'm trying to promote myself as well. But they're telling me I shouldn't be on it because they have access to your credit cards, and I don't know if it's real. Maybe they're
It's a
telling you that
Chinese-owned
every
company.
time you
That's
go
what
on there, Chinese has got your credit
freaks
card and they're
people
running
out.
shit up on Amazon. I don't know, but the
Hey,
bottom
every
line.
department store in town has my credit card, so
I was hacked and they had mine too. Somebody ran up a fake tax account. And the IRS called me up and said, somebody rang up a tax account. I said, how'd you know it wasn't me? They said, you didn't make that much money. So, I mean, people are out there. There's a crazy world. But I guess my point is there's a lot of opportunities. There's people making lots of money on these YouTubes and these Instagrams and this TikTok and all these other outlets. Is that how it is? It's TikTok, right? Or is it What is it? TikTok.
no, TikTok, you're
Yeah,
right.
okay. Why are you looking at me funny then? I thought you
Well,
had.
you said the TikTok. It
Oh
was
well, the
just
TikTok.
you're just like me. We're older guys, and we started with MySpace
Yeah,
and ended up on Facebook, and now they've got this. There's a whole like 10 other um, social media platforms that they just keep getting crazier and crazier. So I don't
yeah.
really get TikTok myself, but it's hot with the people under. Here's the problem. It's generational. It's great with people under 30, but I'm not under 30. So what do I give?
Well, I pretend I am. I go on there and I say, hey, this is Sean Moore, some truth, lies, and political bullshit. I'm 22, trying to start off my podcast. We have come and join me. And the next thing I know, I got 3,000 people follow me. Then they see me on the thing and they go, this guy's got a white beard and he's 250 pounds. And if he takes his hat off, he's got three
They're
hairs
thinking
left.
you look like shit for 22, Sean.
Yeah, then they cancel me. So I got to be careful. I don't give them my channel here because I'd be fresh out on the TikTok thing. But I'm glad that I had a chance to talk with you because I'm really praying that we can find a way in this country of ours to bring comedy back to the forefront and start spreading the cheer of laughter. And you said it, a half hour ago into our podcast. I think it's starting to change, right?
Yeah, it's a pendulum. It's coming back, I think.
I think all these woke corporations started realizing, hey, wait a minute, we're cutting off people because
Disney really
50
stepped
people,
in it.
50 people are bitching, and we just lost 200,000 people.
Right.
And the reality is, for most of us, for most people, I think we can laugh at ourselves.
And you're absolutely correct. If you're going to be a happy, healthy person, mentally and society wise, it's important to be able to laugh at our society, laugh at ourselves, find the funny in things, and that will lower stress, make everybody a healthier person. But I think our point, Sean, is it also brings people together. Unlike the internet or cell phones or things that are very separate, or the TikTok, where you're watching other people for 60 seconds on some stupid video, that's not connecting with somebody. When you're in a room with 200 people, 500 people, 20 people, and you're watching a comedy show and somebody on stage is making you laugh because they're talking about something everybody can relate to, everybody can engage with, you're connected. Even if it's only 90 minutes in a theater, you're still connecting with those people, a human connection. And maybe not all 200 people think every bit is as funny as another bit, but that's why comedians try different things. You want to try to reach everybody at some point, and sometimes it'll be this half of the room, sometimes that half. I'll tell you a little secret in show business. When you're a stand-up comic and you're really riding that wave and you're rocking the audience, guess who the one person you spot in the audience? It's the one that's not laughing.
Yeah.
And now your goal is to keep going and keep pushing until you make that person break.
Yeah.
And you could have 2,000 people laughing their butts off, but if you see somebody not, that's becomes your goal, because that's our job as stand-up comedians, is to engage and break those taboos, those walls down, and reach somebody.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it's like public speaking, and you're looking out to the crowd, and the one person's got the puss on, and you go, "Man, it ain't working for that one. I got to try to figure out." And as crazy as it sounds, you always try to cater to the few that ain't smiling and laughing because you want everybody to enjoy it, and you want everybody to take part. And it's almost like you have this moral obligation to yourself to say, "I got to get that sad puss off that person. They got a shitty life going on, and I'm up here to try to make them laugh. So I got to figure out. Don't worry about Sean over there. He's got 4 beers. He's laughing his ass off. But the guy next to him, look at him. He's got a piss on. I don't know if he's pissed his pants, what he's done, but he's not happy. I got to make him happy."
But we
And
got to
that's
also make it clear as a producer, I'm a comedy producer and I had a 200 seat theater and I did 10 shows a week. I always would point out when somebody would complain, they were offended or didn't like something. I would say, well, thank you for sharing that with me, but the other 199 people laugh their ass off, and that's all that matters to me.
yeah,
Here's your
yeah,
money back if you want it. But
yeah.
my goal as a producer is to make the masses, the majority, relax and have a good time.
I remember, I remember being at a comedy club, and I can't recall who the hell the comedian was, but I just remember they were pretty dirty, right? They were saying some pretty good dirty jokes, and this girl got up and walked out, and they were right in front of me, and the boyfriend gets up and he's chasing her out the door, and he comes back and she's gone. And he's like, "She left." I said, "Well, dude, this guy just made your life for you." He goes, "What do you mean?" I go, "Why the hell would you marry a girl that got up and walked out and one of the funniest guys you ever seen in your life? She's got to be a miserable woman her whole life. He just saved your life and you shouldn't marry her." And the funny story is I seen the guy years later because I knew him. We were all in the same place. And sure as shit, he didn't marry her. And I think when she walked out, she never came back. And he said to me, "You're right. That comedian saved my life. I almost married her." And that's the truth. If you can't laugh at each other, and you can't laugh, man. Maybe you got some issues, and I don't know. If a
Exactly.
comedian if
Well,
a comedian can't break the ice, I don't know who can.
let me share, Sean, with your audience that if you want a laugh, this is an amazing podcast. But guess what? I have one.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about your podcast.
It's called Stand Up Comedy, Your Host and MC. Stand Up Comedy, Your Host and MC. It's available on Apple, Spotify, all the platforms. But it's all about stand-up comedy. It's a duality show. On one side, I interview professional entertainers, agents, bookers, club owners. And on the other side, I present actual material from people like Seinfeld, Bob Saget, Dave Coulier, Leno, people that worked for me in the 80s and 90s. I produced, I don't know if you and I talked about this. I produced 3 TV series and I did radio and I did a lot of large concerts and I own the material. So I share that now. So if you want to hear some great live stand-up comedy from back in that huge wave, rock and roll wave of comedy in the 80s and the 90s, go to my podcast, Stand Up Comedy, host and MC. You'll hear great interviews and some great stand-up comedy.
Yeah, and when we post our podcast, I'll put your link up to your
Oh, see, I
podcast.
was doing a little self-promotion.
No, you
Sorry.
don't have to worry about that. I want to share the wealth. I want everybody to laugh. I told you, I'm deeply indebted to comedians because there's times in life that I was bummed out, right? And they would make me laugh if I was sitting home and watching the Comedy Channel, or if I'd go to a show. I've gone to shows by myself, right? Because I'm not kidding you when I tell you that I believe laughter is the greatest medicine, and that if you don't laugh and get moved to tears by these people every day, then you're missing the boat, right? You're missing
Yeah,
the
and
boat.
you're sending a good message, Sean, and I appreciate your podcast and everything you're doing. Today, we had a chance to talk about some of the challenges to the entertainment industry when it comes to stand-up comedy. But you are absolutely right, and you make a great point. It's important for your own mental health and for your own sanity. Get out, laugh at something.
Yeah.
If you don't like stand-up comedy, watch one of your favorite comedy movies. If you're a reader, go read a funny book or a blog. But if you don't engage in something entertainment and light to offset all the crap we have to deal with in the world, you're going to go insane.
Let me ask you this, Scott. Have you ever thought about getting back in the business? Have you ever
I
thought,
still
hey,
produced. I still produce shows. I produce
okay,
probably 4 fundraisers, comedy fundraisers for charities here in Northern California, and occasionally I've done a couple small comedy shows where I'm giving young new talent, 2022 talent, a chance to get on stage and try their material. And then my website, um, Stand Up Comedy Podcast Network. There's access to other podcasts. There's a comedy training course. There's some videos, a lot of audio bites. It's all about helping the next generation see where stand up came from. That's my theory, Sean, is that it started with Lenny Bruce and Don Rickles and Joan Rivers and those people. Back in the 70s, the 80s, it really boomed and exploded. So I'm getting to share all that material. But as we go into 2023, this new year, people need to have something to compare it to or something to learn from. And that's what my podcast, my website, and hopefully what we're doing with the live shows. I'm still doing these live shows, and people are like, how do you get somebody so funny and we've never heard of them? And it was like my point. There's a lot of really talented, funny comics out there. They're just not famous.
Yeah, and again, famous doesn't mean you're always the best, right? I mean, I'm a big baseball fan. You see all these people who play baseball, millions of people playing, and only 1% of them ever make it to the pros. And there's actually people that are playing somewhere else that may even be better than those people or some of those people, but they don't get the opportunity. They weren't seen. Nobody knows them. There's a lot of luck that goes in. There's politics that goes in, and there's chance, right? The chance that you run into somebody and they go, I just seen this comedian, and holy shit, was he the funniest guy I've ever seen? And maybe he's somebody, right? I remember there was a girl who did the local news where I live, and I'm going to get this wrong because I don't follow all of the news channels outside of the local news. But he's seen her on the news, and he was a big shot with another big channel, and she ends up becoming an anchor on one of these, MSNBC, CNN, or something like that, going from 30,000 to 400,000, and it was just by chance that he happened to be up here in the capital region. Those are the things that happen to comedians, man. Somebody goes to a show, somebody says, "Come see somebody. I think they're funny," and I don't know, somebody from a TV station is doing business in Albany. They go to the show, and next thing you know, somebody's knocking on your door. It doesn't happen like that all the time. But
no,
happen.
It's pretty rare. But I had a comedy team called Paul and Phil, Paul Robbins and Phil Cowan, and they were just messing around on my stage like open micers and doing some skits. And a radio producer happened to come to the show, saw him, put him on radio. Paul and Phil ended up having a 30 plus year career on radio.
There you go.
They also ended up on TV as the Answer Guys, where they've won 4 Emmy Awards. And yet nobody really knows them. They're not famous, but they had a huge career. They got broke because they were performing on my stage. And I'm so happy that happened because they were fun, talented guys, and I still know them. They're just recently interviewed on my podcast, and those things happen, though, Sean, where somebody
but they do happen.
Somebody.
They do, and again, I'm not saying that happens a lot, but a lot of things have to happen to make you become one of the best in the world. And it's not all just because you're the best comedian, right? A lot of things have to come together. The blessing from God that sends all those people to the right place to see you. And next thing you know, you're famous. So my response to all these young people who are out there trying to make people laugh, just keep doing what you do. Do it because you love it. Don't do it because you want to be famous. Do it because you think you can make a difference in people's lives, because laughter changes a lot of people's lives, right? There's a lot of people depressed, a lot of people that just need something to release all the shit that's built up in them. So if you keep doing it for that reason, you know what? You're successful anyway. Exactly. And it doesn't matter if you end up being, the next Jay Leno. You just end up being somebody who's had a great career doing what you love to do and making people laugh. So
it's like my podcast, Celebrating the Famous and Not So Famous. Hey,
well, listen,
Sean, you've done a great job with your podcast, and I hope you keep it up. And I know your audience is growing and building, but you're sharing a good opinion, a good message, and congratulations on your success. I mean, going from bouncer to firefighter to mayor to helping run this theater. I mean, you're had a great life yourself, and the fact that you're out sharing it with your podcast. Thank you for all you're doing, Sean.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Scott. And listen, I really want to thank you for coming on. I thought it was a great podcast. We talked about a lot of great things. I hope that we can keep in touch. I see you again. If you're ever up in Albany, let me know. We'll go out and have some laughs. Otherwise, I appreciate you coming on Truth, Lies, and Political Bullshit. Please stay safe and keep making people laugh. And I know one thing for sure. You'll never own another submarine. So hold on to those memories, man.
You're absolutely right. Thank you so much, man.
Sick and tired of all the stuffy podcasts? We wanted to create something real, something raw, where there are no limits. Sean has held political office for 20 years, been a professional firefighter, and been through hell and back. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. See you next time on Truth, Lies, and Political Bullshit.